Good afternoon, everyone, and a belated Happy New Year to you all. Welcome to today's edition of Black Health Trust. We are so happy you chose to spend some time with us. I'm very excited about our program today because, as you know, we at Black Health Trust are attempting to keep everyone aware and updated on current events. And we really are at the threshold of a new era in artificial intelligence. And so today we are going to continue discussion around artificial intelligence and how it impacts us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our founder, Dr. Randall Maxey.
Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm corrected. And thank you, Dr. Barbara Davis-Stevens. Thank you, Dr. Ivan Walks, and thank you, Dr. Jocelyn, if she's on. Okay.
She's on.
All right. Dr. Hines, how are you? So we have an excellent program today. Some years ago, when I was at the NMA as president, I wrote an article along with a couple of associates on personalized medicine, precision medicine. And then it was just a thought. Now it's come full circle. So I'd like to introduce first a nationally renowned pediatrician executive in her own right to introduce our speaker, Dr. Rhonda Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Maxey, and thank you to the leadership team of Black Health Trust. I have quite an honor this morning, this afternoon actually, to introduce someone that I've known probably for the last 10 years or so, Dr. Charles DeShazer. And Dr. Maxey, when he asked me to introduce him, I looked at his introduction and the font was so small, I had to copy and paste it and run to my printer. That's why I made this dash. So I'm so glad that I could do that in record amount of time. So, but Dr. DeShazer is well known nationally. He's had over 12 years of practice as an internist. He hails from the beautiful city of Chicago. And for the last 3 decades, he's been on the administrative side of healthcare. He has an extensive experience in informatics, and I'll just tell this little bit about him. He built his own computer as a child, so he has credentials. He's well known for his informatics expertise, quality improvement, health plan operations. Most of his career was spent at Kaiser Permanente. He dedicated 15 years to redesigning primary care, implementing electronic record systems, and improving quality. He also worked as a chief medical information officer and a chief medical officer for an integrated delivery system, a chief quality officer for 12 hospital network, and a chief medical officer for the 4th largest Blues plan. And I won't say the name, but I'll hint that's where I met him. Most recently, he was the global director of clinical products at Google, and he has spearheaded global strategies for clinical care software, emphasizing advanced features leveraging generative AI. He is currently an executive in residence at Cigna Healthcare. And without further ado, I'd like
6641.
turn it over. Is it to Dr. Maxey or turn it over directly to Dr. DeShazer?
Dr. DeShazer.
Okay, and I'll go on mute.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. And I still miss working with you at that 4th largest Blues. And really proud of the work we have continued to do. I think that, and thank you, Dr. Maxey, for the invitation. I reminded Dr. Maxey that back years ago, we worked together on educating Black doctors about managed care. And so I see his mission has continued to drive education in our community among professionals and the lay public. So I'm really happy to be here and to share this information with you all. I'm going to bring up my slides now. Let me make sure this works here. Okay, are you able to see my slides now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, great. Well, I wanted to talk about generative AI and how it relates to the African American community. First, I want to introduce the concept. Hold on one second. Let me go back. My computer may be freezing here. Let's see.
That's because you're in Chicago.
Exactly. Let's see. Hold on. I think it's finally coming back here. These glitches always occur when you're ready to present. Hold on one second. Dr. Maxey, I don't know if you have my slides, if you could bring them up, because
Simon, can you do that?
yeah.
Simon?
Okay, give me just a second.
Okay, let me test again. Are you able to see my slides now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me see if I can, I think it was a memory issue. Okay, can you still see them?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, great. All right. So first of all, I want to just do a quick overview or introduction to generative AI. And this is what I was working on at Google. And I was amazed when I started there to see this capability and realize that Google was not bringing it to market. And I just saw all kinds of potential in healthcare, but they were hesitant because of their brand. They didn't want to take a risk in healthcare, et cetera. And then OpenAI just released ChatGPT to the public, and everything is taken off. And it forced Google actually to respond to that. But what generative AI is a subset of AI technologies. The differentiating thing is that it's able to create new content. And I want to underscore some of the firsts and why those firsts are so important, in that that's a new capability for a computer. We've never been able to create that before. Computers can regurgitate information, organize it, structure it differently, but they've never been able to generate new output that didn't exist before. And so that's the first thing that's new and different. Now, what large language models are is a specific type of generative AI that specializes in processing and generating text. And so they're trained on vast amounts of textual data, enabling them to understand and generate human language with a high degree of fluency. So in other words, natural language processing. I mean, imagine the Star Trek computer. I mean, this is the Star Trek computer where you talk to it, it understands what you're saying, it consumes vast amounts of information and can, respond with creative outputs. We'll talk a minute about what it can do. And so here are the implications. And again, I want folks, if nothing else, to understand that we have now created a computer with capabilities that have never existed before. And so our challenge, and I think in particular for the Black community, as we talk about this a little further, is to figure out how do we take advantage of this and not fall further behind. Again, my angle and thinking about it and looking at it from the healthcare perspective, and that's what I'm going to be driving in my position at Cigna, for example. I'm going to have health equity. I'm going to be looking at ways that we can leverage this technology to address those gaps. But the implication of this is the implications are huge for our entire community and culture. And so we really need to be on top of this. So number one is that we now have the ability to just load this all kinds of data into a computer database, let's call it, and generate knowledge. And therefore, you've got a computer now that literally has all the knowledge in the world. It can have billions of data points. You don't have to organize it into a structure, et cetera. You just dump it in and it learns. That's the advances. You've got machine learning. It actually learns by just dumping information into it. And these mathematical models are so advanced, and the computing power is so much more significant now, that with the speed of doing these computations, it actually simulates thinking. Consider that the computer can now actually think. Look at it in that way, and you begin to see this is really something different. This is really a new thing. And then with instructions or prompts, it can simulate the creative outputs of any expert in any field by generating this new content in seconds. Not a day, not a minute, not a hour, literally in seconds, it can create this new output. And then the interface to this, which I think is really, really important to understand, typically to access this kind of power in the past, you had to learn a programming language like Python or C++. Now the interface is your native language. Whatever your language is, that's how you access this particular tool. So it's a completely different animal. For the first time in human history, we can now simulate human thinking, generate new content based on that thinking. And in other words, you can automate knowledge work just through conversation. So really understand how significant this is. This is much more significant than the creation of the internet, for example. And this is really a game changer. You have to think about it in this way to really comprehend why it's a game changer and take advantage of it. I mean, that's what we really need to do. I'll be driving that in my role with Cigna. So think about what it can, just as a quick overview of what can it do. It can answer questions. You can ask it any kind, I mean, literally any question you ask, it's going to give you a decent answer. It may be a great answer, but it's going to at least give you a coherent answer because it has all of the knowledge in the world. It's going to generate, it can generate text. It is contextually relevant. It can create stories, compose emails, generate creative content like poems or song lyrics. It can translate languages in real time. May not be as accurate as specialized software, but it can get you in the ballpark. It can summarize large journal articles or books and just bring out the key points. You can ask it, what are the most important points? And it understands what important means. And it will pull out just the important points from that text. And because of this thinking capability, it can tutor, it can explain complex concepts. You can explain to me heart surgery as if I were a 5-year-old, and it will do that. And it will pull out all that data and information it has about heart surgery and translate that into words and concepts that a 5-year-old would understand. Never has a computer been able to do that in the past. It's also a conversational agent, so you can actually just talk to it. It understands the context. It remembers what you talked about before, and you can basically use it as a thought partner in that way. It's amazing for ideation and brainstorming. You can just have it, outline an article for this topic. It'll pull out the outline the article and encapsulate the key points. It also can code. That's what really kind of blew me away as a tech guy, informatics guy for 30 years. This thing, you just tell it what you want to create. It will actually understand that and create code for machines. So this is a machine that can program itself. Again, that's never existed before in terms of technology. Obviously, role-playing entertainment, and then content creation assistance, if writing a blog, social media, etc. And so just think about this. The other key aspect is that this resource is free. At the base level, it's a free resource. You just go to ChatGPT and pose your questions. So it's an Einstein level creative and thinking partner for literally any kind of knowledge work. So obviously in healthcare, our work is knowledge-based and knowledge work. So the implications are immense in terms of healthcare, but it's actually applicable to every single industry. Every single industry will be impacted by this technology. So what are the limitations and risks? The main thing is that, well, a couple things. One, limited knowledge. Up until recently, it only had knowledge that was, as they call, ingested as of 2022. They're working on ways now to make that more updated and give it the ability to search the internet. The two big things that are relevant for us. One is inaccuracy. So the interesting thing is that they tune the computer algorithms to be more creative. That's why it can create a poem or a song and not necessarily tuned it for accuracy. And so if you ask it a question, if it can't find an accurate, precise answer, it will make it up, and it will put it in the right context so that it sounds and appears to be appropriate. But you got to be careful about that. There was a story about a lawyer that used it to prepare his case, went into court, laid out his case law, et cetera, and then all the references were false. They were inaccurate. He was laughed out of the court. So you have to, understand that it still requires a human to validate, review, and make sure that what the output is that actually makes sense and that it's accurate. It misunderstands large, complex contextual situations, so it's not at that level yet. The biggest thing for us in the African-American community is that all of that knowledge that's dumped in there includes all of the racism and biases that exist in knowledge that's out there. Do you know what I mean? So the answers you get are going to still have that inherent bias, and so we've got to, recognize that. And there are ways to get around that, but that you really have to be aware that you have to, again, have a human in the loop, as they say, to make sure this makes sense. And that's the same thing for ethical considerations. And then obviously privacy concerns. This is where, if you put the right information in there, personalized information, you can create what are called deep fakes, which are indistinguishable from the real thing. You can simulate, your grandkids' voices and saying things that they might say. And, and folks, there are a lot of scams that are being created based on the ability to create deep fakes. So those are the limitations and risks. But I just want to hear on this slide, just underscore the implications in terms of knowledge work being automated now. Again, for example, McKinsey has done a number of really nice studies in the space, and and I'll talk about in a minute how they're changing their thinking. But up to this point, there's certain professions that you cannot automate. Like for example, programmers. It was thought that, hey, that's a future-proof profession. It's going to always be a job for programmers. That was true up until about a year ago, because again, this tool can actually simulate knowledge work and programming. So programmers are at risk as well. And so this top chart, just lists all of the, kind of professions or activities that can be automated. So from office and administrative support, almost 50% of that can now be automated, and so you're going to start seeing administrative assistants, begin to have their jobs change. Right now, it's not actually eliminating jobs because to a large extent, because the technology is not that mature. But over time, you can expect a lot of these functions to become more and more dependent on computer technology. Legal field, architect, engineering, life sciences, business, financial operations. You can see us somewhere down here towards, healthcare support. About a quarter of that work can be automated. But what you're going to see in healthcare is that a lot of the administrative burden and overhead is going to begin to disappear. It's going to begin to be automated. So it's actually going to be very helpful and transformative in healthcare. And the bottom chart just looks at the type of workers that will be impacted. 45% of clerical workers, professional workers, about a third, technical professionals, again, about a third. So recognize that this now is going to impact anyone that does knowledge work, and which we felt in the past was fairly protected. So, and just quickly, where is this going? AI, according to McKinsey, can generate 2.6 to 4.4 trillion dollars in economic benefits every single year. And this lists kind of the capabilities that will become more mature and develop. What the bottom line to this chart is that they predicted in 2017 how fast computers would develop these capabilities, like creativity, coordination with multiple agents, natural language generation, sensory perception, social emotional output. In 2017, they had a certain prediction, which you can see in the gray bars here and dots. They refreshed that after generative AI was created. And in 2023, every single capability is accelerated by 10, 15, 20 years. So this thing is moving fast. And that's the other key message that, again, is a takeaway, that this is, really cannot sleep on this. It's moving faster than even the experts expected. And so what are the implications for the Black community? I would recommend anyone with an interest in this to read this article by McKinsey. They also did an article about how to generate economic mobility for Black folks. And we really need to begin to think about this. And as everyone on this call knows, wealth equals health. So there's a direct connection with that. So from a health perspective, the source of health disparities to a great extent is the wealth disparity. So when you look at the wealth disparity, the average white household has 10 times the net worth of the average Black household. And that's been the same way since the 50s. It has not changed. Civil rights movement, all of the work that's been done has not budged that an inch. So that's an area where it's expected. If we don't get on top of this and understand how to leverage it for our community, McKinsey predicts that the racial economic gap is going to increase by $43 billion a year if we don't address these issues. But the other factor is that if we use it thoughtfully and remove barriers to Black economic mobility, it can actually close the gap for the first time. And so the impact that they see is that Black Americans are overrepresented in roles vulnerable to automation. So it can potentially exacerbate the unemployment disparities. The other interesting thing they talk about is that our pathway to advancing in organizations, Gen AI will disrupt that and will not make that pathway as clear and as easy to navigate, particularly for Black folks without a college degree. So again, it's going to shut us out of high mobility jobs. It's going to take jobs that we predominate in, and then we're not the future skills we aren't prepared for the future. So I want to just highlight that as why this is so important for our community. And from this AI piece, we really can't sleep on that. It's so important. So I wanted to just highlight a few ways that we can begin to try to deal with and take advantage of, in fact, of this new capability. So how do we mitigate the negative impact? And again, I'm not going to go into depth on these, but just want to highlight some approaches that we've got examples and good evidence that they are useful approaches. So targeted education and reskilling programs. One of the interesting things is that the Boston Computer, BCG, did a study in their consultancy, which obviously is a knowledge-based industry. And they divided their consultants into two groups. One group could use ChatGPT. The other group could not use ChatGPT. And what they found is that the group that had access to ChatGPT They completed 12% more tasks. They did it 25% faster, so they did more in less time, and the quality was 40% better than a group that didn't. All these professional consultants, but they with this tool, it upskilled and improved the performance of the group that used it. The interesting thing is that they also assessed before the study, the performance of the consultants. The consultants that had ChatGPT, it actually up-leveled their skills. So for the ones that were at the bottom performers, it improved their performance by 43%. And the ones that were at the top, it didn't improve them as much. So, this is really critical for us because we often come into roles unprepared, for various reasons, and we have to compete with folks that, have come up in a different environment. This tool alone can help upskill and close that gap, proven by this study. And so targeted education and reskilling programs, I think, will be a key element of how we begin to close the gap and take advantage of this technology. Google has a program focused on training digital skills. It has been found to transition folks into well-paying tech roles without four-year degrees, for example. Access to STEM education from an early age is going to become more and more critical. Engaging in things like code.org, Black Girls Code, that's going to be another critical element. And promotion of entrepreneurial and support for Black-owned startups is going to be important as well. In this environment, in leveraging these tools, you're going to see much more activity from a startup business perspective because things are going to become automated and outsourced rather than incorporated into the typical corporation. And so, it's been around $14 billion invested in the AI industry over the last couple of years. So this is going to be critical for us to participate in that as well. Obviously, policy advocacy and regulation, addressing things like inherent bias, et cetera. We really have to engage the communities and raise awareness. So that's why I really appreciate this invitation to begin to communicate and make folks aware of how important this is. And again, out of the many things you may hear about come and going and this and that, do not sleep on this one. It's really critical. And then public-private partnerships for workforce development. And then my last slide here, I just want to kind of outline how do you position yourself as an individual? So what can you do as an individual to be ready, to be prepared, and to be on top of where things are headed? The most fundamental things in general are just begin to use ChatGPT. So I literally use ChatGPT every single day because I'm in the knowledge business. I'm in the knowledge work business. There's nothing that it cannot help me with. And it can do incredible things like the graphic you hear was created by ChatGPT. I just put a prompt in there, show a Black family looking at the computer, and that's what it created in 10 seconds. So understand the power of that, and read the journals. It's a hot topic in the healthcare journals, any kind of academic journals. There are tons of books that are being produced now on Kindle, Safari Online, YouTube, courses, online courses such as Udemy, Coursera. I looked at Udemy about 2 months ago. It had 300 courses on ChatGPT. I just checked recently, it's up to 600 courses. So, that's another option. Now, if you have interest in becoming an expert in this field, then think about doing some training. MIT and Stanford are the best institutions, top institutions for AI. And I've taken several courses at MIT and really top-notch thinking coming out of there. Look at associations for Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, Partnership for AI. Also, whatever organization you're in, think about becoming a leader in that organization. Some folks may not be aware, but the executive order from Biden around AI and included a provision that every government institution needs to have an AI officer. That's a job opportunity for anyone that's interested. And this is such a nascent field You just need to be a little bit ahead of the other person to be considered an expert. You know what I mean? So this is really an opportunity for us as well. Now, the other angle is to become an investor or entrepreneur in this space. And, if that's the thought, then think about the Magnificent Seven. They call them Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Tesla. They've all have heavy investments in AI. And they've generated roughly 3/4 of the S&P gains in 2023. Talk with your brokerage firms about, opportunities to invest. I listed some great sites there, Seeking Alpha, Investors Business Daily, Crunchbase. Consider being an angel investor or working with VCPE firms. And then the last thing is, consider entrepreneur opportunities. I mean, I think this is, again, think about the internet at the beginning. So we're at the beginning of another sea change driven by technology, and there are going to be huge opportunities to generate wealth, to generate businesses, to think about how to work with folks in a different way. And then the last thing I would say is that any questions you have about how to come up to speed, how to organize things, how to think about this, ask ChatGPT. It literally can answer any question that you would ask it. So with that, I'm going to stop there and open it up for any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. DeShaza. This was excellent. I learned a lot. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to ask my co-moderators and Dr. Johnson to ask the first question. And let me know if there's anything in the chat we need to deal with Dr. Neighbor Stevens and Dr. Walks. Dr. Neighbor Stevens?
Yes, I was looking in the chat to see. I don't see any questions, but I do have a question. I think my first question and earliest question around generative AI has always been how to prevent or protect the knowledge base created from inaccuracies that are created by misinformation used to create the algorithms. In other words, the simple version of it would be garbage in, garbage out. But what I'm trying to get at is if algorithms are built with incorrect information or assumptions or opinions, and you've got generative AI then using those algorithms to create so-called knowledge, how can we, one, identify it? Two, how can we manage it? And three, how can we prevent it?
Yeah, great questions, and a couple of things. So, your point is exactly right. Garbage in, garbage out. So the fundamental way that the creators of these large language models are trying to focus on that aspect of it is to get data that's not biased, and they may have humans that review data before it's trained and say this is biased or this is good or that's not. So that's one of the ways that that's being corrected fundamentally in terms of the actual structure and the training of the large language model tools. Now, beyond that, I think probably one of the most important things is that what you alluded to, which is that you just can't take this out of the box. You know what I mean? You just can't say, like the lawyer did, just took it, hey, this is all true. You really still need humans in the loop, as they say, and you need experts. That's why as a physician, I'm not in danger of being replaced at this point by this because it's just not accurate enough or unbiased enough or as expert as I am. But, you still need me to review it and validate and make sure it's okay. So you got to always screen it and make sure someone with expertise, knowledge, and that whatever you're trying to protect against is actually looking at that output before it goes anywhere. So that's really the most important thing right now. So, but it's being dealt with on the back end. It's going to take time, but that's a key principle: garbage in, garbage out. What you're going to begin to see are more specialized large language models that are going to be higher quality, less garbage in, and higher quality outputs.
So at the end of the day, we're still dealing with old-fashioned quality control.
Right, right. That's exactly right. I mean, so you still have to have that. This thing, I'm telling you, when you can ask it a very complex question. I mean, give me an outline for a book I want to write on AI. It will give you the complete outline, structures, da 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 da. But you still have to go through that and do the quality checks to make, from your expert perspective, this makes sense. Oh, this, I don't know what ChatGPT is talking about here. You got to take that out. You still have to do that, and that's exactly what it is: quality control.
So I went on ChatGPT a few months ago, and I said, write my autobiography, and it did. And very good up until the last sentence. It said, unfortunately, he died in 2021.
Okay.
No.
The rumors of your death are greatly exaggerated, right?
Does Dr. Johnson have a question?
Sure. I have. Thank you so much for this presentation. And you did such a great overview, right? Because many of the questions I would normally have had you kind of touched on. But to pull out some of the things that are in the chat, there's a lot of concern about bias, right? But because you've answered that, I won't go to that one. But the next one is about regulations. And one of the particular places where I'm concerned is about being it for lay people, the average person, to be able to identify real content from fake content. We already saw the impacts of how that impacted COVID in particular, but are there recommendations being made to force labeling of AI, that a watermark or whatever that says this is AI generated content or something like that, as from a policy point of view, and any other regulations or safeguards that you're aware of that are initiatives that are being put in place? Because again, it's so new. In general, regulations are behind real life, but those are my questions.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there definitely there's a lot of work happening in that space, and to do exactly what you described in terms of labeling and kind of differentiating, and there are laws that are taking shape about deep fakes, because you're right, that is a high risk in this environment of disinformation being created that looks more plausible. You know what I mean? Because it can, that's what it's really good at, is making something that's fake look real, So, to your point, though, I think, we really have to track and understand and kind of hope that the regulatory world is going to really focus on those aspects, because it will become a riskier environment otherwise.
Thank you.
Dr. Walks?
Dr. DeShazer, I want to thank you for two things. The first one is for a really excellent presentation. And the second one is for being in the room where it happens. People that look like us, that have some of the concerns that you voiced, need to be in those rooms. So thank you for being at Cigna. Thank you for the work you did at Google. I go back to Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and that old movie War Games. And I think your first or second slide just terrified me. Yes, they can code other computers. I'm like, hold on a minute. I watched every Terminator movie, and all of this scares me to death. Yeah. Without getting too much into the sort of scary science fiction, and they're coming to wipe us all out, it's really a challenge to get folks to have health literacy is a big deal. We've known how important it is forever, and we still aren't able to get the people that need to understand basic stuff to pay attention to basic stuff. And as Dr. Hines mentioned, this is a very, very scary time, because to go to, and I don't want to make a big speech, but I really physically felt uncomfortable as I was listening to the possibility for things to go the wrong way and for things to get actually much worse for the folks that we treat as physicians and the folks that we care about as humans. So knowing what humans have done, you've been on the planet longer than 15, 20 years, knowing how humans have handled things in the past. Can you share a little bit more for you had the word hallucination in there on that earlier slide. I'm a psychiatrist. The only reason I know about hallucinations is because I can look where the other person is looking and I can see that no, there's no one over there standing against that wall. But if none of us have the ability to actually know that, this is a very terrifying time. So that's the end of my paranoid soliloquy. Please help me with understanding how knowing what the world has done. Man, what do I do?
Wow, they're extremely well stated, I'll tell you, and I'm glad you're nervous. I mean, you understand, you know what I mean. And so, couple things, and I'll tell you, frankly, I'm nervous too. You know, when I was with Google and I saw I'm not even going to talk about quantum computing, which is what Google is working on, which completely changed the game again. Just keep your ears out for that. That's going to come next. It's scary. Okay. And I don't know if you all heard, I just want to digress for a second to kind of touch on your point, Dr. Walks, is that I don't know if you all heard about this big issue with OpenAI and the CEO got fired and then they hired him back. The reason he got fired is that the board was terrified of where he was going. And the hint that they were getting close to was, so here's the Terminator model, is what's called AGI. So it's basically artificial general intelligence. So in other words, you recreate an actual thinking, learning human being through just technology. And he had demonstrated this. And that's what they got terrified about. It was like this thing, this model could like learn math. And that may sound like a simple thing, but for a computer system and a set of algorithms to be able to do that was unheard of. That's where he wants to take things. That gets really scary. And the board was really like, hey, this guy, he's going in a whole different direction than where we want to go. But, that was the context of that. So understand that behind the scenes, and again, I saw this in Google with the quantum computing and what they're doing, et cetera. It is scary. And we have to keep our antenna up to really understand how we may need to react, how do we respond, and how do we position? Because it's all about getting prepared and positioned to deal with what comes. So that's something to keep in mind. And all I can say about that is that your fears are well-founded. You know what I mean? And we need to track and we need to understand and we need to make sure that we can intervene before something really begins to create damage from that perspective. Now, on the other hand, your other point is well taken too. The other aspect of this is that it means we need to be in the room.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so you're right. I am in the room at Cigna, and trust me, I'm guiding things. I have health equity. Trust me, you're going to hear a lot about the benefit of leveraging this technology for health equity. So I'll give you an example. I demonstrated, with the quality team at Cigna, talked about AI, and I gave them an example. I had a 58-year-old Black man, diabetes, hypertension, typical note, and here's all the things you need to do. What you can do to address, for example, health literacy, you can take, the educational material and you can say, explain this at a 5th grade level, 4th grade level. Happens just like that. But here's the interesting thing. Because the technology can understand very abstract concepts, I told it this patient is an auto mechanic. So tailor the educational material to metaphors that an auto mechanic would understand. And it did it just like that.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So just think about that. You can personalize educational materials to the individual to help them to understand what they need to do. You know, it using now metaphors like, your blood pressure is like the pressure in the I don't know, the water pipe is getting too high. And so you have to manage it, et cetera, et cetera. But it did an amazing job in 10 seconds of translating that material. So just think about now, I think Dr. Maxey had mentioned personalized medicine. Now you've got the ability to personalize it to an N of one, just like that. That has never existed before. So then you add in genomic information and proteomics, et cetera. And now you're treating us as individuals, not the one size fit all that's created these disparities. Do you know what I mean? And so you address social determinants, you address the context, you address the genomics. So that's the opportunity we have. So I think the other side of it is that we need to get engaged. We need to be in the room. We need to push for the value creation aspects of this, and from my perspective, for our community in particular, because we've got the most significant gaps, and we have an opportunity to actually leapfrog here. This is a leapfrog opportunity for our community if we use it right and really push it. So the scary side is there. We just got to keep our eyes out, keep our radar up. But we've got to push on the opportunity side of this because it's a huge, never before existing opportunity for us.
There's two people on. I'd like to ask a question. There's Dr. Motley, who's an AI expert, and Charlton, who's on. Maybe they can be unmuted. Simon, if they have a question for Dr.
Motley's on.
In the meantime, can I ask a quick question? As a very rudimentary user of ChatGPT, and I appreciated you mentioning the places where folks can go take coursework to learn more. Does it allow you to give feedback, right? Because we're talking about the places where it can give, inaccurate information, and I'm assuming ChatGPT was made for because we're all the test population, right? We get the ability to volunteer to give all our information so that then you can take and do whatever you want to. But in that space, are you able to say, no, this gave back an answer that was, whatever, biased or blah, blah, blah. Does it allow that?
Yeah, it does. And that's a good point, because if when at the bottom of each response, you'll see an up and a down arrow. If you click down, it will, train it that this wasn't a response. And I believe it gives you an opportunity to comment as well. So and that is, to your point, that we are the lab as well, and they're looking for that feedback to understand, because that goes right back into the system and it trains it. So it's amazing when you think about it, because it does this just by saying yes or no, zeros and ones. The entire computer is based on that. And if you start to tell it, no, this didn't work, then it knows all of the components of what went into that response, and it learns, okay, then that wasn't a good one, and then it's going to change. So yes, that feedback is actually important.
Before Dr. Motley comes on, can you just give a brief statement about quantum computing and the difference between binary computing?
Yeah, that's a big deal. So so binary computing, so it's amazing that everything the computer does is just based on a pattern of zeros and ones. So it's binary computing. Quantum computing gets into qubits, and I forgot the exact, how many things it can compute at one time, but it's significantly faster than the binary computing model. And so just imagine now, ChatGPT on steroids. I mean, they're imagining that it can do with quantum computing, you can do computations that are impossible to do, would take years to do. You know what I mean? With binary computing at this point. quantum computing, you can do it maybe in a day or two. And so the ability to drive scientific discovery, imagine putting these large language models now on steroids, and again, you're talking Terminator stuff, Star Trek Terminator world for real. It's no joke. Robotics is going to incorporate all of this. It's going to be a whole new world. Quantum computing is coming. Now obviously, from a healthcare perspective, drug discoveries, personalized medicine, it's going to put that on a different level as well. So again, it's an upside and a downside to all of this, but we've got to be really cognizant of the downside and try to mitigate that and minimize that, because the upside is incredible.
Okay, is Dr. Motley unmuted or Jerry Charleston unmuted?
You hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. A little bit of background here.
Can you speak a little bit louder, Dr. Motley, please?
Yes. A little bit of background here. I first got into what we call artificial intelligence in 1967 when I developed what we call smart machine to help land vehicles on things like the moon. Because our human intelligence and knowledge of flying airplanes didn't work on other planets where there was no atmosphere, there was no lift, and there weren't the same sort of controls that you have in an airplane. So we had to figure out how to deal with that. And we built what was called smart machines that would adapt to that environment. All right, just saying that. My interpretation of artificial intelligence is perhaps a little different from something came up. Okay, got it. To me, artificial intelligence is the mathematical computations associated with making it possible to do cognitive functions normally done by man. That means to perceive, to reason, and to act. Now, if you think of the human as a machine, how do we develop the skills to do that? Easy, we're taught. From infants, we're taught all that we know and use cognitively to do all the functions that we do. And artificial intelligence is no different. If you don't teach it, it can't do it. It can't pull out of the sky knowledge that you didn't teach. So they have this stuff called training of neural nets, of trees, of all sorts of artificial intelligence mathematical structures. They have to be taught. So,
Dr. Motley, do you have a question for the doctor?
not directly, but from when he lectured. The only thing is, don't think that it's scary to deal with artificial intelligence. If you don't teach it stuff you don't want it to do, it can't do. So it's a teaching situation that we should be cognizant of, and not just the artificial intelligence itself. Now, he said he worked with Google. Google, of course, has commercial aspirations in every direction possible. What I don't understand is why the media like Google portrays AI as such a scary thing, and I don't understand. Perhaps you can tell me about the culture at Google that generates that, because that shouldn't be the case.
Okay, thank you. Dr. DeShanta?
I'm sorry, Dr. Maxey, what did you say?
I said, can you address what he was asking you? Yes,
Can you
about the culture at
repeat the
Google.
question? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Well, can I
culture. Go ahead.
I was just going to say he was asking about the culture at Google and why they kind of portray AI as scary. But can I just broaden it a little bit? And in general, I don't, not specifically about the culture of at Google, but in general, I think there is plenty of things, whether it's media, whether it's books, all kinds of things that leave the layperson with the potential space to think that AI is scary, right? So in addition to quote why we the general public might think AI is scary, to your point, what are some ways that we can also not think of it as scary and embrace it simultaneously?
I think you just said it, Dr. Hines. I think we have to embrace it. You know what I mean? We have to really dive in, lean into it, push it, push the limits, get engaged, be in the room, etc. And I want to be clear that the culture of Google did not portray this as scary at all. This is what they were doing. I mean, they loved this. These are a lot of very smartest folks in the world I ever worked with, and they were diving into this. So they really didn't perceive it as that. I think when you step back though and think about where this is going, if it's not controlled, you realize this is a neutral tool that could be used for good and it can be used for evil. Do you know what I mean? It's just like the atom bomb. It could be used for, good, potentially, but it could be, you put it in the hands of the wrong folks, and you can destroy the world. So I think that we have to think of it from that kind of vantage point, is that it's a neutral tool. It doesn't care what it's used for. So to me, that I'm saying personally, that is scary to me. The downside of what it can be used for. I mean, you just had this story about teenage kids using deep fakes to create nude pictures of classmates, female classmates. And you know what I mean? It's like it really destroyed the girls. I mean, one girl's thinking about suicide. That's just one small high school able to create deep fakes. Just think about that for a second. So that's why it's scary. And then when you think about automated general intelligence, where it can learn, as Dr. Molly mentioned, right now we have to train it. You know what I mean? And it's intention of what we do. But just think about something that maybe can search the internet on its own autonomously and learn. So that's why are we going to trust the folks that run the world now with this kind of power? Are we going to trust? You know what I mean? Just think about that. That's why I think our community, we really need to get engaged. Really, again, in 30 years of technology, I've never seen anything like this. And I started in AI back 20, 30 years ago as well, trying to create algorithms and if-then rules, da, 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 da. I've never seen anything like this. So I think we have to lean into it and try to guide it, use it for the upside that can create value and take full advantage of that, number one.
Dr. Shaza, we certainly appreciate your excellent lecture here today. And I wonder if we have any further comments or questions, Dr. Neighbor-Stevens, Dr. Walton, Dr. Hines, in the chat that we want to address?
I have several, and I would like to take privilege and ask a follow-up question on what we were just discussing. So we're talking about this new frontier that we're entering. I want to take it to application to our audience. We have done historically an abominable job with health literacy. Mm-hmm. How can we create and implement AI literacy at the community level? They're not going to take that course at MIT. What can we do, and how can we get this process started? Because we are already late.
You're right. Exactly. I think, and I don't know, initiatives that the Black Trust can drive or push, but I mean, to me, it's just starting to use it on a daily basis and to incorporate it into tools. So, again, for example, I mean, we can do this, you can do this today. So, and I totally agree with you that health literacy is a critically important point. Today on a very tactical, practical level, everybody gets a MyChart printout that they take home with them or email. Just today, on a very simple, tactical level, you can now take that printout, dump it into ChatGPT, and then query it. Literally. I mean, I demonstrated with a team of nurses how once you get this information in, you can query it in different ways. So, for example, you can take just had a doctor visit, dump this into ChatGPT. Okay, ChatGPT, explain to me what I need to do at a very simple level. Give me step-by-step instructions on what I need to do. Just pull out the medications and the tests I need to do. It will pull out a customized version of that printout for you, translated to Spanish, just like that. It'll happen. So in other words, because this tool is free, there are ways that we can begin to use it on a daily basis to do that kind of translation to address a health literacy issue, for example. It's amazing what you can ask once you get some data into it. Now, obviously, the challenge there is privacy. You don't want to put a lot of PHI, in that system because it does go back into the database of ChatGPT. But I'm just saying that's a framework that we can begin to think about very tactical, practical ways of leveraging it.
Excellent, excellent. We're at the top of the hour. Are there any further important questions we need to address?
Dr. Maxey, there are probably dozens of important thoughts and questions, and this is the beginning of a very important conversation that we are having. Dr. Michelle Clark has her hand up. Dr. Sherrod has had her hand up for a while.
Okay, let's recognize.
And I'm about to throw my hands up because
Dr. Michelle Clark. Is she able to unmute?
Thank you. Is Jessie unmuted because she was ahead of me?
Go right ahead, Michelle. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just have a comment and a request. My comment is if people want to know what they can do, I think joining the association, one of the points that Dr. DeSheza made, and being in the room in that association, advocating for that association to create community programs in the African American community to bring people up to speed on AI would be a way that I would approach it. And Dr. Shazer, would you please display your final slide again? Because there are a couple of things that I wanted to capture from there that I didn't get. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Jessie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. DeShazer, for this excellent presentation and all the information. And like similar to Dr. Walks, I'm very nervous. I'm actually petrified. I know that there's a good side to this, but I'm just thinking about widening of the gap of inequity. There are so many people in our community that doesn't even have computers. And I was at the grocery store the other day, and you can't even pay cash now. You got to have a credit card. How many of us who do not even have a credit card? So my question to you is, how do we assure, how do we get people in the right place? What can, I'm into action items. What can we do as individuals to make sure we get the right people in to make sure this information is correctly introduced into our community and our community has the capacity to utilize it? Yeah. And I know that's a big question, but it's something that we need to all think about. How do we go about this? How do we get it up to the NMA and other places that look out for our communities? And I know Dr. Max is looking out for our community.
Let me answer part of your question. On the 24th of this month, Dr. Jazer has agreed to come back to address the Black Health Trust Medical Advisory. We haven't had a meeting with that for quite a while. So we're going to have a meeting on the 24th. And for any of the people on the call who want to make sure you get invited, let me know. We do have a list of our medical advisory. And I do agree that we want to get it to the NMA and our medical societies. Doctor, you're so great in what you presented to us. But I want to make sure we know that on the 24th, he has agreed to come back and present in depth, not just a lay talk, but a talk at a professional level about artificial intelligence. And I was looking in what's up today about everything on artificial intelligence. There's extensive information that we can look at and how to use it. So, Doctor, you have any final words that you'd like to?
Dr. Maxey, before we go to final comments, there is Jerry's iPhone, and that hand has been up for quite a while and down and back up again.
Let's unmute him.
Yeah, I did
Hi.
want to.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say I've been listening about this AI and
Why don't you introduce what you do and who you are?
I'm Jerry Maxey. I'm Dr. Maxey's nephew. I'm also a cloud engineer. I've been doing software development and infrastructure development and cloud infrastructure. But what I wanted to say is there are gates in our society, and one, as Black people, we know that we've been held out of certain industries and jobs because the employer is able to look at you and see that you're Black, right? I tell us, sorry. I tell a story about how my name is Jerry Maxey, and I used to put in applications, and I used to show up, and they used to be shocked and say, "Oh, he's Black," right? Because my name did not give it away, right? So, circling back to AI, the gates that keep us out of places and from doing things right now is paperwork, right? You didn't have the right form. You didn't have all your ducks in a row, right? That's why we didn't get the loan, or we didn't get the job, or we didn't get whatever, right? So I see this as a great equalizer, right? And just like the speaker said, we need to start using it. You need to go to ChatGPT, you need to make an account, you need to start asking it questions and getting the answers. So about a year ago, I have an app that I was trying to release, but a lot of people have this story, right? They go talk to the important business person in their family, right? And the person in their family says, "Oh, that's a great idea. Go write it down." And that's the last time you talk about that.
Right.
Because the person is like, "Oh, I got to do a business plan, and I have to do a pitch deck, and I have to do financials, and it's too much. I'm not going to do it." Right? So, but now we have, hey, ChatGPT, write me a business plan for this. For what? I don't know. Make me a business plan. How can I make $1,000 a week? You figure it out. You're a robot. Okay.
Right.
You go ahead, you pay the $20 a month and you get GPT-4 and you get better answers. And when it gives you a bad answer, you say, "Go do research. I don't believe you." And then you challenge it. You challenge it. It will teach you things, right? It'll teach you how to do the, hey, if I want to get a grant for this, what type of hurdles do I need to look over? Oh, okay, you say this. Okay, let me go to the website and let me hit Command A or Control A and copy everything on the site and go back to ChatGPT and paste it in there and say, "You figure it out," right?
So you have a question for the
You
doctor?
figure it out. So I think that we got to think about it different, right? We don't need the scary stuff. The scary part, the only thing you should be scared of is not getting your hands on the latest version. If you say that people don't have technology, listen, we can go to Walmart, we can get these $50 tablets. It's not true. They can get their hands on it. They all got phones. Everybody got a phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We need to say, hey, a young person, ask that young person a question. And if they don't know, why don't you know? You got ChatGPT in your pocket. Here, let me show you how to use it.
Do you have a question for the doctor, Jerry?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I
No,
just wanted to make those comments. I want to make those comments.
Jerry, you
Yes.
summed it up perfectly, man. And if there's no other message, is what you just said, and you gave a great example of why. But this is an equalizer. I mean,
Yes.
it's an equalizer for us. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You just gave the perfect example of how you could use it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I'm
Ask
talking.
it.
We need to do that.
It told me how to talk to my boss. Hey, I'm gonna send this email.
Right.
Do I sound
Right.
aggressive?
Right. You literally right. It's like, okay, ChatGPT, this is what I was gonna say. Tone it down. You know what I mean? It will do that. That's why I hope folks take away that, guys, we've never seen anything like this. We have to jump both feet in the deep end. And to your point, the fear should be not taking full advantage of this. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
You're
scary stuff
competing.
behind it. Right.
You're competing with the other
Right.
applicants are using AI. The other
That's right.
kids are using AI on their homework too. So I go to my daughter and I say, you better be using that ChatGPT because
Right.
Susie and them, they using ChatGPT and they got a real good paper. Like, no, we're gonna get on it, and you know who we are, we're gonna find a way better way to use it because it's gonna do way more for us.
Okay. I want to recognize this one other person, if we can, is Dr. Cutter on. She had a comment, and she went to Ohio State. Dr. Cutter, can she be unmuted?
That's so funny. Good afternoon, everyone. And I just want to, I want to say one thing for certain is that what an impressive set of comments from Jerry Maxey, man, that really puts it into perspective because I was kind of sitting here thinking about, okay, how am I going to approach this? How would I share this with people in my organization and all those things? But challenging it, right? Using it to be competitive. That's a really good way to look at it. And I do think that takes the fear out of it. Some of the things that I was asking about in the chat, one just had to do with a lot of physicians have this technology issue, right? They're afraid of technology. They don't like EHRs and all of those things. And rather than to say, well, wow, this is going to stop them from using, the technology, can't ChatGPT help them to be more comfortable with technology and EHRs? So that was one point. Yeah. But the other point was about the public, or the question, I should say, the other question was about the public at large and how we learned during the pandemic, so many households didn't have access to the internet. So how do we build a bridge with these people? And I think Jerry Maxey kind of answered that. He said, people have a phone. Use your phone. You don't have to have Wi-Fi at home. So those are the questions that I placed in the chat. And I just want to say that I was spellbound during the entire presentation. I'm just so glad Dr. Maxey puts these on. And what an opportunity, I think, for all of us here. And it would be great to kind of absorb this and then have another one where we kind of take it to the next level. So thank you so much.
And where did you go to college, Doctor?
Did I go to college or Dr. Cutter?
Where did she go to college?
Okay.
The Ohio State University. So funny.
All right. So where are we, Dr. Stevens?
We're at the witching hour.
Okay. Dr. Shaza, again, many, many thanks and kudos for this stimulating presentation. And not only do I want you to come back to us for our professional meeting on the 24th, but I'd love to have you give ChatGPT #2 when you can in the future. You're
Absolutely.
So Dr. Hines, as our youngest moderator, you have final comments.
Just want to thank you again, Dr. DeShazer, for a wonderful presentation. A couple of things that I don't think, so the free version of ChatGPT, I believe, is closed to new users at the current time as of November of 2023, but you can still pay, as Jerry mentioned, for the ChatGPT Plus version. I did put in the chat. I used, as you said, I asked Chat GPT, and I asked Chat GPT about some free online Chat GPT courses for community users, and I put those in the chat. So things that, you know, us layperson users, because one of the things that I found was I didn't know what to ask it. So I didn't know how to use it because I couldn't figure out what to ask it. So just some ideas on ways to get started. And this was a really great discussion. And yeah, I definitely appreciate the ways that we've confronted the concerns of the things to be fearful about, but how we can move past that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dr. Ivan Walks.
Doc, thank you very much. I feel like I've had a therapy session that has has been able to allow me to move on with my day. I am just so heartened to know that there is someone who shares some of the concerns about our community and looks like us, many of us, that is in that room and in those rooms. I've been in so many rooms where I felt a little uncomfortable, but thought it was such a blessing that I was there because I was able to hear and I was able to contribute. And I feel that way about what you shared with us today. It is such a blessing that you are there and you're able to contribute. So I just want to, I just want to encourage you. I'm sure that some of those days are difficult and some of those times are uncomfortable times. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us. And Godspeed, my brother. It's an interesting time.
Yes,
Dr.
it is.
Barbara
Thank you
Davis,
so much.
Dr. Barbara Davis Stevens.
So, as my colleagues have already said, thank you so much for coming and leading us. I won't say out of the wilderness. I really will say you kind of led us into the wilderness. And I'm looking forward to you getting us on the other side. But in all seriousness, as a pediatrician, one of the things that I've been thinking about in this whole context of AI is the impact all of this is going to have on the future of our children. And we hope and pray that you will come back and we can talk about this with you from several different angles. Maybe one we can talk about general distribution of the information, dissemination and skill building in the community. But we also need to target some things, key areas that impact our community, like what's going to happen to our children and what do we need to monitor in terms of their educational experience so that they will be in a position to be competitive going forward. And there's several other areas that I could think of that we could isolate and target in discrete conversations. So I hope and pray that you will be able to help guide us in this journey.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shada, before I ask you for final words, there's one other comment that somebody wants to make. Jerry Charlton. You have a brief comment?
Yes, very brief. One other thing is knowing about something it's easier to know about something when you do it yourself. We can make a Black Health Trust GPT that is specific to our issues. And if we develop that, we can release that to the public and the public can use it. So to get rid of the mystery, we can do a workshop and we can build it and you can see what it is, right? This stuff is open source, which means the public can use it. You can develop your own. It's just databases. It's just words. It's very simple. And that's all I want to say is that we can use it very specifically for our use. And I can show you guys how to do that. Okay?
Good. We're calling you too. And my last question before Dr. Schauser, I want to know who's going to win the primaries in New Hampshire, Dr. Steiner, you know? But I'll go back to our main speaker. Dr. Schauser, this has been so great. If you have final words, I'd like you to give them.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you all so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed the conversation, all of the right questions, which I'm excited about, you know, because that says we've got a critical mass that's shaping around how to think about this and how to go after it. This is the most important thing that's happened in my career. And so I'm fully committed and leaning into this to help guide it for the benefit of our community, frankly. That's the gap that's at risk here. And you saw the numbers, $43 billion of damage to our community is possible if we don't get our arms around this. So I'm fully committed to this, and I think it's really important. I appreciate you all, having this audience, and anything I can do to help, contribute, work with you all in any way, fashion, or form. Jerry, thanks for your comments. They were so on point. And you're right, ChatGPT just opened a store where you can create, your own specialized versions. So, we should take advantage of that. And again, lead and drive and really take advantage of the benefit. And, it can create true value for our community.
Thank you so much, Dr. DeShaza. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I just want to tell you, I have a 2-year-old grandson whose father is a neurosurgeon. He's already got books on neurosurgery at his level. So he's saying what you're saying. I appreciate that. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Who's going to win the football game? Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.
Oh no, Dr. Hines.